Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in your part of the world. My name is Chris Long. I'm the Head of Health and Safety and Sustainability, or more recently, Head of Sustainability as I've moved across roles in the organisation to focus 100% on sustainability. And it's my absolute privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to this symposium. This is hosted for the first time from Bridgend College in South Wales in the United Kingdom. And the symposia is part of a number of symposia which have been held over previous years by different countries who are members of the Global Affinity Group. Now, the Global Affinity Group is a group of like-minded individuals from different organisations who have an interest in sustainability within TVET and arrange symposia as a space where people can discuss all things sustainability, to share best practice and to learn from each other. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And what I'd like to do first is just for you to enjoy, I guess, a little bit of information about sustainability at Bridgend College. So I hope you can all see the screen at the moment. Okay, hopefully that's okay for everyone. I can't see you, but hopefully you can see my screen. So education with purpose, embedding the SDGs in vocational training. As I say, what I'd like to do first is just give you a very small video, just to give you a little flavour of sustainability at Bridgend College. So sit back, relax and enjoy the video. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. That little flavour leads me on. I guess I want to approach this part of the presentation with some real sort of positivity. We know the kind of pressures that are on us globally from climate change and the biodiversity crises. But I thought it might be nice to just take a positive spin and look at the way that the green economy is presenting itself right across the globe. If it were considered as a standalone sector, the green economy would have been the second best performing industry globally in the past decade. Now, for those with a little bit of sort of economic knowledge, that market capitalization reached about 7.2 trillion US dollars in the first quarter of 2024. So there's a real positive story about the changing green economy and what that means for our learners. The green transition is changing jobs and skills for a sustainable economy. An estimation is that between 35 and 40% of all jobs in Europe could be affected by the green transition. And in the UK, that's about 1 in 5 jobs, or about 10% of the UK workforce at the moment. Globally, what does that mean? Well, the transition to a net zero emissions environment by 2050 could create new industries worth about $10.3 trillion to the global economy in that same year. So there's a huge opportunity as we go in this green transition and tackle the biodiversity and the climate crises that we face at the same time. For the UK audience, it's not just about a climate imperative, it is a significant UK economic opportunity. In December 24, there were around 23,000 net zero businesses. And since 2023, that's a 10.1% growth in the total economic value generated by the net zero economy. The positive, really positive upside of this is that for every job supported by net zero businesses, a further 2.5 jobs are supported in the wider economy. What we can see from that little graph, that little diagram, is that the economic activity goes from 29, 35, 19 billion, and a total economic contribution of 83 billion pounds through initial activity, through the supply chain, through people spending money. So it's a really positive picture to sell people here, and that impacts upon the way we deliver our curriculum. So what is happening at Bridgend College? I thought it might be just worth giving a positive spin on how we're approaching this. In 2024, we asked some questions, a survey: what worries you most about the world today? What's the most important thing you should focus on? Our key response, one of our top concerns, was clearly climate change. So an enormous opportunity for us to continue what we're doing as an organisation, to look at climate change and sustainability and biodiversity. So important is this to us that our corporate governance risk register has sustainability as a top level business risk. It comes right from the very top. We know that failure to meet sustainability and carbon net zero commitments leads to a whole range of risks. College values a weakened ability to attract and retain new students and staff, inappropriately skilled workforce, inappropriate curriculum, and that will have a negative impact on global climate, ecological and social breakdown. Tackling it is a really positive thing to do. What are we doing in the courses? Well, we're mapping the courses against both the Sustainable Development Goals and the Welsh Wellbeing Goals. There are about 700 lines on this document, and each course is being assessed individually to see where there are opportunities to improve course delivery for sustainability. Further still, we're looking at business support areas, whether that's finance, sustainability, that could be estates, could be MIS. All parts of the business have an opportunity to look at the way they operate, so they become living examples for our students to learn from. And maybe even business support staff can pop into the curriculum areas and deliver to students. We want people to have a baseline shared language for sustainability. Language is incredibly important. When people have a basic knowledge, have some basic vocabulary, they can build on that, have confidence to use that in conversations, and that will lead to different conversations and different outcomes on a shared language foundation. And that's a really positive thing for us. And we're trying to really sort of embed that across the organisation in all different ways. So what does that do for the curriculum? What's the impact upon the curriculum? So some real lovely examples here. So this is quite new for us. So our Sustainable Futures Academy is being launched. We know that our learners need the skills to be successful in their career. We know that the better skills they have, the better they can contribute to a changing economy. And that is positive for both them and the environment, and of course, for the college as a whole. We've had climate conversations this year and a global SDG teaching. We have different spaces. They're called the blue spaces and they're called the yellow spaces. And this is an example of something happening in the yellow spaces. Students are leading on this. They're taking areas of sustainability that they have a real passion and interest in, and they're talking to their peers. They're doing competitions and chats and filming to bring these issues to life. And the SDG teaching, well, you can see us there. We're number 9 on the leadership board at the moment, and we're in the company of some very large organizations. The SDG teaching is an opportunity for curriculum areas to bring sustainability into the curriculum. Curriculum areas make a pledge. They then take sustainability into all different kinds of curriculum areas. And you can see from those images some of the kind of topics that might include. Students manage a shop. So this is a shop where used clothes are recycled, sold on, and help those learners understand what is happening in the materials economy, in the fast fashion industry, if you like. And the opportunities to run businesses in a different way, where the value of materials is understood, where things have a repurpose and a reuse. They can be upcycled. And these are all amazing skills for our learners, as well as looking after the shop. Many of our learners will go into a learning resource centre. Bridgend College had one member of staff who showcased what we was doing at the British Library in November. And we were the first college to sign up to the Green Libraries Manifesto. That means that these learning resource and success centres will host posters and demonstrations and information materials and books and so on and so forth that help our learners really grasp the nettle when it comes to sustainability issues. And there's a whole host of skills and knowledge that they can gain from all of these incredible resources. Project Malcolm is another brilliant success story, an ongoing success story. Schools have come in, they have good fun riding these little contraptions around the place. They're generating renewable energy at the same time. And our House of Ideas, the image you can see on the left of your screen there, well, that's linking with sports students in this case who grow crops on campus, take those crops into the kitchen, cook something nice with it, and then eat it. And that's a lovely experience for looking at circularity in the food system, understanding where our food comes from. Our conservation students have been doing some incredible work, significant real wilding projects, real passion for conservation of genetics as well, looking at heritage crops, for example, looking at nature recovery action plans. They've done a huge amount working with different partners across Wales. And in fact, they're going to do a learning exercise to support conservation in Iceland in the coming months. And there's more. Apart from the Sustainable Futures Academy, we have a Change Maker programme. This aligns with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Commissioner in Wales. And that is about giving young people more of a voice in their future. We have our digital badges that students can earn by doing different projects, learning about different things. And then we have our Edible Campus project, which is in full swing. That is using every single tiny gap that we have available to us on campus, which will be given to biodiversity, food for nature, food for people, and to provide open spaces for well-being, as well as tackle climate issues. We know that we have a lot more to do. Part of what we're doing in this symposium is to learn from others. We're very open as an organisation. We are very willing to learn from others on this journey that we're still learning about at the moment. So that's the end of my presentation. And what I'd like to do is to invite, let me just stop sharing that. I think we're back. Okay, so our first speaker, and it's an absolute pleasure to have a host of amazing speakers from around the world. And our first speaker, Gabby Hensky, is the Sustainability and Communications and Engagement Coordinator from Humber Polytechnic in Canada. Gabby, we love to see you. Thank you for supporting our symposia. I'll hand it to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Share my slides. Thank you. Hi everyone. Oi, gente. Hola. My name is Gabby Hensky, and I'm really stoked to share a little bit about how we advance equality. So looking specifically at SDG 10 through our work here at Humber Polytechnic, as Chris mentioned, in Toronto, Canada. So before I get started, I just want to share a land acknowledgement. So this is very common practice for us here in Canada, so recognizing the traditional lands of the Indigenous peoples here. So Humber is located within the traditional and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Known as Etobicoke, the place of the elders in Michi's Hagig language, the region is uniquely situated along the Humber River watershed, which historically provided an integral connection for Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wyandot peoples between the Ontario Lakeshore and the Lake Simcoe, Georgian Bay regions. Now home to people of numerous nations, Etobicoke continues to provide a vital source of interconnection for all. So this is Humber's official land acknowledgement, really, paying tribute to all of those different peoples who have been stewards of the land that we are currently in right now. And in addition to that, we usually also share a more personal reflection. So I wanted to share with you a photo of myself. So this is what you see on the slide. And it's actually me looking at the Humber River. So that's where Humber Polytechnic gets its name from. And the Humber River is known as the Gabi Kanangzibi in Ojibwe language, which is one of the Indigenous languages that we have here locally. And it's a snowy winter day when I went snowshoeing. This was maybe about a month ago. And I really just wanted to share this with you because the Humber River has been really constantly with me in my journey in Canada so far. So I moved here from Brazil in 2017, and I have been living in Etobicoke. So this is a neighborhood of Toronto ever since I moved here, mostly out of self-interest because I knew I would be studying at Humber, so I wanted to stay within the neighborhood and really just make my commute easy. Toronto is a pretty big city. And so from the beginning of my experience in Canada, I have lived and now I work in close proximity to the Humber River. And, I'm just extremely glad that I have been able to nourish this strong connection to the land here. And it's not something that I take for granted. So as an immigrant, I have faced and I still face a fair share of barriers. But I also enjoy a lot of unearned privileges based on what I look like. So even though my citizenship status here is still a foreigner, I do not have a Canadian passport, my experience in Canada is a lot smoother than that of Indigenous communities who have been stewards of the land here for generations since time immemorial. So I really take it upon myself, the responsibility to learn more about the history of the land that I now call home, the treaties that have shaped relationships between Indigenous peoples and settlers, and to be an active participant in advancing reconciliation. And this is important, especially being someone who is so passionate about sustainability. This is also my work. It's really fundamental to value the contributions of Indigenous advocates and continue to work towards the self-determination and sovereignty, which unfortunately are things that they're not able to fully exercise nowadays. So just wanted to start off with this brief intro. If you're interested, if you'd like to learn more, I'm happy to share more resources later. But here is the agenda of what I will be covering during my presentation today. So I will briefly just go over sustainability and equity so you can understand our approach at Humber. And then I will cover how we advance SDG 10 through our work. So looking at teaching and learning, resources and programs, and international collaboration as well. So for sustainability and equity, I really want everybody to be on the same page about this, especially in terms of our own approach to those topics here at Humber. Hopefully people are already familiar with scholar Kimberly Crenshaw. She is someone really well known, especially for the intersectionality topic. And she puts it that intersectionality is a lens that allows us to see how different forms of inequality operate together and exacerbate one another. So I know this can be a very abstract concept to understand. So I always like to present this flower image in my presentations to make it a little bit more visual. So you can see this drawing of a flower. It's made out of petals that represent different areas of a person's identity. And in those petals, the outer part of the petal has a more privileged position. And so the inner part of the petal is a more marginalized or oppression identity. So when looking at social class, for example, wealthy is on the outer side of that because it gives you a lot more privileges and accesses in life as compared to working class, which is in the inner side of the petal. And those are very context specific. So this is for the Canadian context. It might look a little bit different where you are right now. It might also change in a few years. And I know that not all of those categories should be simplified to a binary. This is a pretty big simplification, but we'll just go with that. Let's not make it more difficult than it has to be. So really to illustrate Crenshaw's quote of how different forms of inequality oftentimes exacerbate one another, I want to consider some petals of the flower. So speaking about myself, being a woman puts me in disadvantage in comparison to men. But I do enjoy a lot of privileges simply by having white skin and being someone who is cisgender. When compared to another woman with possibly very similar experiences from mine, similar age and everything, but she might not be able to access as many opportunities in life based on a darker skin color. So then we see that gender and race are playing a big role in how people will live through life. And each petal of the flower is there because of some sort of social, financial, or political system in place that benefits a group of people to the detriment of everyone else, pretty much. But when thinking about, climate crisis, why is this relevant? Why am I taking so much time to go over this? So who is experiencing the most harm when we have forest fires, for example, extreme heat or flooding? Who are the people who are able to afford to recover from those climate emergencies, rebuild their homes, move away to a safer area, buy even food when it gets more expensive, right? So then we see that climate change is not only impacting people's lives through those emergencies, but it's also magnifying existing inequalities that are here as a result of capitalist, racist, colonial, patriarchal, heteronormative systems, just to cite a few of them. So we can see this happening in many scales when looking at a city like Toronto, country, and even globally. We see that the climate is impacting communities at very disproportionate levels. So when we talk about sustainability, we should not only consider how the environment can be protected, but also how to bring about climate, social, and racial justice to communities that have been and still are disproportionately affected by environmental changes because of all of those overlapping oppressions that end up feeding off of one another. And this, big complexity really asks that we apply systems thinking so that we're able to understand all of those relationships and feedback loops. So this was pretty heavy. Hopefully people are following along. I'll just take a big breath now, and then we're going to move on to how we bring this type of approach into our work at Humber. So I'm looking at specifically SDG 10, which is all about reducing inequality within and among countries. But I do want to focus on targets 10.2 and 10.3, which look at the empowerment of people by providing equal opportunity and greater inclusion. So to illustrate this at Humber, I will go over teaching and learning, resources and programs, and international collaboration. And at first, our approach is really about belonging. We want to ensure people come here and they feel like they are part of a community. We want to ensure that they have a positive post-secondary experience. So back in 2023, the Office of Sustainability was introduced into the Division of Inclusion and Belonging, which you can see some people from that team on the photo, alongside the Office of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion and Belonging, EDIB, and the Indigenous Education and Engagement teams. And since then, our department has expanded, welcoming the libraries, athletics, and many other student services. So then you can see that even the student services themselves, we approach them through a belonging, to an equity lens. We're really informed by the lived experiences of our students, our staff, and community members to shape our programs so that they better serve our student needs. We also really pay attention to representation. So we want to ensure that our staff and faculty are representative of the student body so that students from multiple nationalities and backgrounds can see themselves reflected on employees at all levels of the organization. So now focusing on teaching and learning, I wanted to bring those two things that we do to share with everyone. So we have the Humber learning outcomes, very similar to any learning outcomes. Those are just specific to Humber. And we want to ensure that students have a set of skills and mindsets as well as values so they can be more successful in their future, but in a way that is more meaningful and connected to their communities, both locally and globally. So a big part of the HLOs, those learning outcomes, spans from those mindsets that I have listed on the slide. So we have equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, sustainability, systems thinking, and Indigenous ways of being, knowing, and doing. So our goal with those HLOs and those mindsets is to wave those mindsets into all programs. So all students who are graduating from Humber understand how those values of sustainability, of equity can be applied into their field of work, regardless if it's directly connected to what they're studying or not. They will be able to incorporate that into their studies and future work. So this approach is really helping students engage in more critical thinking and develop an understanding of intersectionality that goes beyond the traditional curriculum. And to help put this into practice, we offer lots of workshops and professional development sessions for faculty members so that they have the necessary tools and knowledge to successfully incorporate the mindsets into the curriculum. We don't necessarily expect them to have the answers already, but we bring all of the resources together as a community. And still talking about faculty and staff, now moving on to the second part of my slide, we have communities of practice that bring together people based on a shared interest. So we have a sustainability champions group where people come together frequently to talk about sustainability, how they're incorporating that into their own roles. And we also have employee resource groups, ERGs, that are more based on a shared identity. So they share resources among themselves and allies as well. They inform institutional policy changes and host events also year-round that celebrate queer and Black brilliance. So really raising the awareness among our community. And there are many other countless professional development sessions, workshops, and trainings also available to really strengthen their skill sets. Now, a bulk of our work is really about resources and programs in addition to the classes themselves. And a really big area that we have at Humber is food equity, because we see so many students experiencing food insecurity. So we have lots of programs in place that try to enhance that access to food. A lot of those programs, they are directly related and guided by Humber's campus food strategy and vision. So we put together a document that look at the needs of our community and how we can better shape our food services specifically to really offer better, more nutritious and more affordable food. So we have a student food security fund that helps students access food on campus. So it's similar to a bursary where students receive a certain amount of money, and with that money, they're able to purchase food on campus. We have a soup bar, so offering both fresh soups as well as frozen soups for students at a pay-what-you-can cost or also free. And we also have many events that also stem from Humber's wellbeing strategy that help students with grocery budgeting and cooking easy and nutritional meals, as well as other things. We have also student centers. So in addition to the Office of Sustainability, in the Inclusion and Belonging department, we have those teams that offer culturally relevant programming and supports for students. So we have the Black Student Support and Experience. We have the Indigenous Education Engagement and the LGBTQ plus Resource Center. So they offer events for students and really just a community space where students can come be themselves and learn about supports that are available to them. A lot of this work is done in partnership with community organizations that have a shared work and values with us. So we have Diversity and Sustainability, the 519, Youth Without Shelter, Friends of Ruby. Those are just some of the examples of the organizations that many times we collect donations for, raise funds, highlight their work to a new audience. And students also benefit from this relationship as they learn about external resources that are available to them and their peers. And another resource that we have available for students, of course, are scholarships to help ease their financial stress. And they're not only based on academic achievement, so students do not have to be top of class to be receiving those scholarships, but a lot of them recognize for active campus participation, community involvement, as well as financial need as well. And now into the third and final section that I have here, international collaboration. So Humber has an International Development Institute that does work abroad. So this is one of our centers of excellence, and it's focused on creating equitable transformational change in the global education sector. So they receive funding mostly from government and other funding donor programs as well to do big projects abroad. So there's a lot of projects now happening in Africa as well as Asia. And a lot of the focus of those projects is increasing gender equality, technical and vocational education and training, curriculum development, and sustainability. So we're bringing a lot of the Humber expertise into other countries and really help them create programs that will really bolster the local community. And through those projects, a lot of times we offer work integrated learning for students. So students from multiple programs like film, for example, sometimes they have the opportunity to visit one of those projects abroad to apply their skills and support the project or just help raise more awareness about that. So film students in the past have visited a project in Africa, I believe it was in Kenya, and fully produced a video, almost a short documentary that was highlighting the project there and all the progress that was achieved. And we also have Humber Global, which supports international learning and collaboration through exchange programs. So we have Humber students traveling abroad, visiting other countries, and then we have students from our international partners coming to learn in Toronto. This is really great to broaden their horizons. To support those students, we usually have bursaries available to help with travel costs. And something that is really special is that from time to time, we're able to offer unique exchange programs usually according to government funding. So this is the photo that I have here on the slide. This was last year. A group of students were able to visit Hawaii, so the island of Kauai, where they learned about like culture and practices that are closely connected to the island. So Native Hawaiians were teaching our students. There was a lot of really lovely cultural exchange. This program, all the travel costs were covered for the students, and this opportunity was offered specifically for Black, Indigenous, LGBTQ plus, and low-income students. So all of those students had their travel costs fully funded by the institution. They learned more about some teachings from Hawaiian culture and brought that back into our own community. So again, really helping students broaden their horizons, learn with others, and understand how they can best address inequalities in a community setting as well as a global community setting. So this was a very quick summary of some of the highlights of our work. And just to summarize, really how we approach equity through an intersectional and systems lens, bringing forth like specifically SDG 10, is a lot through in-class learning. So we have the Humber HLOs. We have many resources and programs as well available to our students. Applied learning through work integrated learning and global opportunities as well. And we're always helping our faculty and staff to be equipped with necessary knowledge and tools to bring all of this to life. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I just have some resources here. So if you ever want to connect with me, that's my email, gabby.hensky@humber.ca. You can learn more about our work by visiting our website, humber.ca/sustainability. And if you scan the QR code, that's going to lead you to our LinkedIn, so you can stay in the loop of more of our professional side of projects. You can also find us there as Humber Office of Sustainability. Chris, I believe you are muted right now.
There we are. We've only done this about 1 million times and I'm still muting, so I apologize. But yeah, bang on time. Thank you so much for sharing that amazing presentation with this, Gabby. I'm always struck actually when I listen to people from who are providing a different context and a different view from a different country, different culture. And I'm always struck by how much I have to learn and I have to understand. And I was very struck by a number of things that you raised within your presentation, but those meaningful connections and the links to the local community. How what you're doing is trying to integrate all into the mindset so that students have the best opportunity to integrate that within their studies and within their work going forward. So yeah, you've left me with a lot of homework to do, and I'm sure that people on this call will take an awful lot away from that amazing presentation. I think you are leaving us shortly.
Yes.
What we'll say to our guests who are online, we do have a chat function there, and if there is anything that you'd like to ask on that chat function, once Gabby's left, I can forward any further questions onwards, although you've got Gabby's contact information in front of you. So thank you once again, Gabby. I really appreciate your time in supporting us, and I'm sure everybody else does.
Yes, thanks for the invite, for being here.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to our next guest speaker. I'd like to introduce to you someone I've known for a number of years and has supported Bridgend College in a number of things that we've sort of done across the campus in terms of sustainability. Steve England is from the Art of Sustainability. The Art of Sustainability is a collaborative social enterprise for planet, for people, and prosperity. Thanks very much for joining us, Steve. I shall hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. First time I'm using this particular platform, so I'm sure it'll all work fine. But when I give Scott the go-ahead, if you can just run the video when I give you the go-ahead, please, Scott. Just a couple of things before we start running the video. I'm basically talking about all the goals we're discussing here. Because I believe that the work that I'm going to be presenting to you is applicable to all the goals, especially around embedding the SDGs in vocational training, partnership and collaboration. So I'm not talking about one specific SDG here. Just to give you a quick overview of how I'm going to proceed with this, I'll be talking over video. I try to work in nature, experiential-based education as much as possible, but that's not always possible for a whole heap of reasons, but this being one of them. I working over video, so I use multimedia as a way of trying to get across the experiential aspect. When we're in nature, we have this two-way communication, but when we're working through technology, that's not available. So video, the body responds as if it's in nature, and it gives a kind of a touches upon some of the experiences we're trying to generate as part of the work we're doing. So, so apologies if there's any kind of lagging over the internet. Hopefully things will go okay on that front. The video I'll be talking over is about 10 minutes long, and then there's 10 minutes for Q&A. Just a heads up to Scott and Chris, I can't see any chats or anything, so if somebody can feed any questions through to me, I'd appreciate that at the end. So Scott, if we can run the video, please. Yay. Okay, so I'm still in England from the Art of Sustainability. We're a collaborative social enterprise towards well-being for all life on Earth. We do educational events, consultation, and facilitation within the framework of sustainability. Now, I'm sure we're all very familiar with sustainability on this call and the framework, but it helps set a context to the conversation that I'm going to be talking about. We cover systems and behavioral change, and my area is specifically around behavioral change. In 2015, the Welsh Government passed legislation making sustainability the central organising principle of government for public bodies, including education. And those are the goals you can see around the SDGs. So the 7 goals and the 17 international goals are interconnected and interdependent, with well-being being the outcome of sustainability in Wales. Incidentally, Wales is also one of the 6 well-being economies. So what is it we're trying to make well? Being, the quality of our experience. However, most of the time, we are dealing with challenges and issues and problems and worries and stresses and things to do, and this sort of we kind of get lost in all of this, and as we proceed with our busy lives. So we need a way or approach to get at being. The wellness of being employs the research and action project that I'm involved in, employs phenomenological and arts-based research. This emerging methodology employs meditation and mindfulness techniques and all other contemplative techniques, but primarily meditation and mindfulness, with 6 key techniques within the methodology. Permissioning, very often the most difficult part for us just to engage with some of these practices. Concentration, focus, coming common to all meditative and mindfulness practices, all contemplative practices. Returning to the focus, the concentration, returning to the our practice. Patience, it takes time, but also developing long-term thinking. Enjoy, if we don't enjoy, we don't tend to do things, but there's also about the quality of experience, and it's very much what we're about, the qualitative change. We're focusing on the quality of experience, so we want a qualitative change. And letting go of what we think meditation and mindfulness techniques should or shouldn't be about, and just opening up to possibilities and ideas. And these techniques, this methodology can be employed in emotional intelligence and compassionate competences, pedagogy, discussion, and biophilia. So in terms of emotional intelligence and compassionate competences, when we engage with the goals, we tend to engage with them as problems, the problem of climate change, the problem of poverty. And so this is an invitation into trauma. And so we need to find a way of doing the work while looking after ourselves. And this is an important aspect of how we develop our own skills and competences. And nobody has the big picture of sustainability. It's more like a jigsaw puzzle, with each of us holding a piece of the puzzle. And we have agency in our piece of the puzzle. And that unites us through each of us working uniquely through the same framework, and interconnecting and connecting with everybody else. In terms of pedagogy, it's about moving away from working through problems, exciting the amygdala, flooding our bodies with cortisol. As I said, most of us are dealing with stress as it is, and an invitation into sustainability is usually an invitation into more trauma, which can be a block to people wanting to actually engage in sustainability. So we're looking at how do we do that? So we using these techniques and methods. It's about moving away from the amygdala into the hippocampus, where we are working with potential and possibility, and opening things up, and systems thinking, and releasing helpful chemistry like dopamine and such like. And in terms of discussion, we're usually in debate when we're engaged in sustainability. We're usually trying to win the argument. But this is about moving into dialogue or dialogus, or the meeting of minds. More importantly, as we see extreme polarization and in moving into diatribe with the emotional download, in terms of how do we meet and discuss in respect of one another. And biophilia, we don't just live in our heads at the end of our fingertips, but we belong to a web of life, and having that connection, that embodied connection with the rest of nature, is key to our well-being as well. So what we're looking at here is basically the three areas. We've got the framework, we've got the methodology that we're working in. One of the big challenges has been around capture and measurement, and we're starting to traditionally we've worked with feedback and testimonials, but we're looking to work with a product called SenseMaker from Kinevin & Co. to try and capture the qualitative aspect of the change that this is bringing about. So if there's anybody out there who's interested in collaborating with us or contacting us and talking about this more, that would be fantastic. So so we've gone through that pretty quickly, and like all these sort of things, there's a lot to talk about, and we can come back over this in the Q&A in the last 10 minutes. But what I want to invite you into at this moment in time is, as I was saying, this is more an experience. We want you to feel what we're doing. So what we're going to do is just spend a couple of minutes watching this river going by. And this is our local river, which is the River Wye. And we're just going to start with a permissioning. We're just going to give ourselves a little permission just to take a moment and just be with the river. And maybe if you're in a safe place, you can take a deep breath and let go. Just allow the body to relax and drop. And just bring our focus, our concentration to the river passing by. And our minds may be busy with other things, but that's okay. Just bringing ourselves back to the river. Just enjoying this moment. Just letting go. For a few moments. Maybe we can allow ourselves just to relax a little bit more. Staying with the river. Thank you. So I went through that very quickly. And if there's any questions or anything we want to open up or discuss or go over again, that's an invitation. I can see a question from Chris. Do you feel that the pace of life negatively affects our ability to find peace and time to open our minds? How can I put this? If we go fast or slow, we're going around the same circle, effectively. So those challenges are inherent in the economy that we belong. So part of the bigger picture is enabling this within us. And one of the key things I want to get across here is that this is not an intervention approach. This is not about going off and doing a retreat or going to a meditation room in the office. This is about skills and competencies that we do, that we train ourselves in, or we are trained in, and we just do. These are just part of how we approach our lives. So it's not a simple case of like, well, this is something I've got to do on top of everything else I've got to do. It's more a case of saying, how do we embed these into our skills and competences, into our training, so that they're just something we do. And I work with the Mindfulness in Schools project. That's looking at meditation, mindfulness techniques within the educational system, and that can be used as a foundational way of. So when we do get into higher and FE space, into our skills, into our professional life, we've got those skills ahead of ourselves, and we can build upon those in terms of how we do practice. So just to reiterate, this is not about an interventional approach. This is about building skills and competencies into our personal and professional lives. And if there's any more questions or anybody's got any thing they want to me to expand upon, so this is just an open space, an invitation. So, question: where can people get more information? If you go to the Art of Sustainability website, that's the artofsustainability.co.uk. I think we had that right at the beginning. You can go to that website and get more information about the wellness of being. So this is also not a standalone methodology. This methodology, we've embedded this into carbon literacy training, which we offer, and we've also embedded it into the What is Sustainability course, which we've been running through Bridgend College. So as I say, this is very much about how do we embed this into our working practices. So if you want more information, you can go to that website. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, hopefully I will Hi, Chris.
Hi there, Steve. For myself, thank you so much for introducing us to your area of knowledge and your area of expertise. We've met down at the Art of Sustainability down in Caerleon. So I've taken part in that course, one of the courses that you're doing down there, a little while back, and it was a real learning trip for me. I actually got a huge amount from it, particularly in terms of questioning what am I doing on a day-to-day basis? Am I allowing myself that space and that time as a matter of just being who I am on a day-to-day basis amongst all of this other noise? And what I've found in that, after doing that course, in fact, was that having learned what I learned on the day and developing that through my career, if you like, over the last several years, is that I've become better at opening my mind to different kind of possibilities. And I have this thing called, you leave no stone unturned. And I've learned to explore much more where my mind wants to take me against this backdrop of noise and busyness. So thank you so much for that presentation. I'm sure our listeners online or on catch-up when we have the recording link available for people will enjoy that. Thank you again, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we are ready to move on to our next speaker. I'd like to introduce to you, if I could, lovely chap from Scotland, Rory Hill, who is the Sustainability Project Manager for the Central and South Scotland College Partnership in the UK. I had the pleasure of listening to Rory, who was doing an online presentation, and he sprung to mind when we were thinking of the symposium. Who do we need to come and speak to us? Rory was the man we needed. So thank you very much for joining us, Rory, and across to you.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. And you'll be relieved to know that this presentation is going to be different from that one. So you'll have something fresh to listen to, although I suspect plenty of the themes will be broadly the same. So hopefully we can all see that okay. And yeah, thanks to Chris and Bridgend for hosting and inviting me. As Chris said, I am a sustainability project manager based at EAUC. What I'll be doing today, I'll talk through a bit of a case study on how collaboration and resource sharing can help tackle kind of action around sustainability, with sustainability being a very big topic and a big challenge, particularly for small institutions around capacity of how they meet that. So I'll talk a little bit about my role and what we've come to call the shared services model. I'll give some examples of where collaboration has benefited the wider sector. And as I'm talking about partnerships, of course, my focus will be around SDG 17, partnerships for the goals, and I feel really it speaks best to SDGs 17G, enhance the global partnership for sustainable development, and 17H, to encourage effective partnerships. So to start out, EAUC, who are we? So EAUC stands for the Environmental Association of Universities and Colleges. We are primarily a UK and Ireland-based organisation, although we do some international work. We're basically a membership organisation for higher education and further education institutions to support work around sustainability, which can range from more on the policy advocacy side of things to guidance, to work in the curriculum, work with the states, and running communities of practice. In terms of our membership, represents something like £43 billion of budget within the institutions, 4.5 million students and 500,000 staff. We don't have all UK institutions being members yet, but quite a big chunk of them, and the vast majority of institutions in Scotland. We run a range of programs, including the Sustainability Exchange, the Green Gown Awards, both internationally and for the UK and Ireland, and the SDG Accord, amongst many others. We also have a dedicated Scotland team, of which I'm a part of. But I'm not really here to talk about any of that. I'm here to talk about, as we heard from Chris, the Central and South Scotland College Partnership, which is a terrible acronym. It describes exactly what I'm talking about, but CSSCP just doesn't work very well. But anyway, essentially, this is a partnership of 3 colleges from, you guessed it, Central and South Scotland, and EAUC Scotland. Now, the background to this partnership is these institutions are towards the smaller end of the sector. They are regional colleges in the more traditional sense. And to give you an idea of size, Borders College, for instance, based in Galashiels in Scotland, has 1,500 full-time equivalent students. So these are relatively small institutions. Together, however, they make up about 1/8 of the college sector in Scotland. So there is size with collaboration, and that really speaks to the problem and the reason for them coming together. So over time, as you can imagine, the Scottish Government and sector guidance has promoted more and more action around sustainability and climate change, and quite rightly has increased scrutiny and expectations of colleges. As small institutions, however, sustainability was a portion of a couple of staff members' job roles. So they didn't have any kind of full-time dedicated sustainability specialists. It was typically a part of a job role of someone, typically either the head of estates or within estates. Didn't have the luxury of a Chris full-time focused on sustainability. Neither did they have the budget to hire someone completely new as a full-time role. So what they did, they joined together and came to EAUC Scotland with the idea of having a shared resource. And this is where we get into the idea of the shared services model, because that shared resource has ended up being me. And the way that it works in the partnership is essentially I am employed by EAUC, but I spend my work split between the 3 colleges. So they get 100% of my time and pay for me, but I'm hosted by EAUC, which has benefits in both directions that I'll come on to in a little bit. In terms of my responsibility, it's pretty broad. It is what the colleges need in terms of support, and my work has included helping them around their annual emissions reporting, supporting projects, including applying for grant funding for these, identifying new projects, new initiatives, and the new guidance we can use, providing advice more generally, and helping the colleges to benchmark their progress against the climate action roadmap for FE colleges. Obviously, this has come with some financial savings for the institutions, particularly compared to hiring 3 full-time roles each. But also, I would say, has efficiency savings compared to if each of the institutions were to hire their own part-time role, and you would have 3 people working, I guess, 1.66 recurring days a week. And that's because by having a centralized role, I've found there's an enormous amount of crossover in between the colleges and their needs and the expectations of them. So often, and the examples I've included here are around emissions reporting and the climate action roadmap. It's essentially around working out how to do pieces of work. So, for instance, the Scottish Government a couple of years ago increased their expectations around emissions reporting and required institutions to report their supply chain emissions and their commuting emissions for the first time. And understandably, it took a bit of time to work out how best to do that. But of course, after doing that with one institution, we were able to repeat that same methodology with the other two. Whereas if you had 3 people working part-time within the institutions, they would each probably need to spend that time independently. And so it was therefore a bit more efficient in that regard. And then we carried out a similar exercise when benchmarking against the climate action roadmap and creating templates of how to do that. Through the partnership, I've also encouraged a bit more direct joint working between the institutions, including bringing together a forum of teaching staff interested in education for sustainable development to allow them to share best practice. My role is focused more on the estate side of things than the teaching side of things, although it does spill over. This being one example, but as a good opportunity to get the people that really know what they're talking about in the right place. Other examples include work with the International Tree Foundation, where we worked with them as a partnership and managed to identify tree planting opportunities. And I'm happy to say take tree planting on projects across 3 campuses across the partnership. So a really nice example of a bit of a shared impact there. In terms of this type of partnership as well, I just thought it was worth including a few reflections at this stage on what has helped make it work. I've mentioned that idea of the 1.66 days a week per institution, and that's completely not how it works for the partnership in reality. They are quite, or the partner colleges are quite cognizant that actually I might spend 3 days working for one of them one week and 1 day for the other 2. And that's fine because the next week it will probably balance out. And in the longer term, a lot of work that I found if I do things for one institution, later down the line will be repeated for the others. I've been phenomenally impressed by the openness of the institutions to share knowledge. There is competition within the institutions. I found this across the wider sector, to be fair. I expected that competition to encourage people to keep things a bit closer to their chests, to maybe not be quite so open to sharing things. Absolutely not the case, and I think that's been key to the success of the partnership so far. The last thing to highlight, were anyone to repeat a similar role spread across institutions, and there is a phenomenal amount of trust placed in me as that shared resource. As I almost have 4 managers, it's impossible for them to really know what I'm doing at any one time. So that there is that trust that I will spend my time proactively and work diligently, which I certainly think that I do. I don't often, sneak off and quietly play the PlayStation for a few hours with nobody knowing. I have a baby now, so I don't have the opportunity to do that anyway. But you can understand what I mean. I'm now onto my 3rd 18-month contract in this form of partnership, so I like to think that trust has been earned. The key thing, really, and one of the most realizable benefits of the partnership, I would say, is the scope for shared knowledge. And I think what's particularly useful in highlighting and the benefit of dealing with different institutions of different backgrounds, different sizes, different stages in their journey towards sustainability and to net zero, is the ability of them to learn from each other. And the example here is, one of the priorities that I had when I joined the partnership in January 2022 was to write new 5-year net zero plans for Forth Valley College and West Lothian College, as they had historic carbon management plans, but those had expired and things had moved on. So their expectations of the sort of strategy document had changed. Helpfully, the third college partner, Borders College, already had a very similar document in their sustainability strategy, which was published in 2020. It laid out a really effective governance structure for moving sustainability forward, with a structure of 7 working groups covering everything from biodiversity to community, behavioural change, energy and water, all that sort of thing. But of course, it was published a few years ago now. When it was published, it won Green Gown Awards and international Green Gown Awards, but sustainability moves fairly quickly, and particularly around expectations from the Scottish Government and the introduction of the Climate Action Roadmap after this strategy was published. So by taking that experience, we were able to learn from it, but also to build on more relevant, maybe not relevant, more recent guidance and expectations from government to produce 2 new documents, 2 new net zero plans, which I'm happy to say are getting their working groups established and are being delivered in the background. Looking at the long-term benefit of this partnership, however, of course, Borders document was published in 2020 for a lifespan of 5 years. We're in 2025 now, so this is about to expire, and we're in the process of creating a new version. In doing so, we are constantly learning from the experience of the other 2 colleges. We had a sustainability committee meeting just yesterday discussing the structure of the new strategy, what it's going to include, and we are borrowing quite heavily from the experience of the others, particularly around refining the working groups. We're several years down the line, and including more actions from the updated Climate Action Roadmap. By working in this way, and of course that's just one example, this is a few other examples of elements where I've been able to help out and deliver success for the partnership, and does reflect what the colleges have been able to do with just a little bit more resource, and in that way I've been able to support them to deliver a few things that they may not have been able to deliver otherwise. The least shiny, exciting photo there, the greyest, is a nice big air source heat pump. That's at West Lothian College, where I was able to help them deliver or secure funding for, and then deliver 2 large air source heat pump projects to take 2 of their 5 buildings off gas. And these are multi-million-pound projects, and my involvement was a bit of a drip feed throughout, but really great to see those projects on campus. And although that heat pump is now hidden away behind a nice big fence, to know that is making a really big difference to their carbon emissions. Equally, it's given them the partnership the freedom to explore initiatives that they wouldn't have otherwise, and to experiment with things. We've got in the middle there a campus cycling officer with Borders College, who helped them to secure funding for, helped them to manage, and who in turn was able to help the college secure cycling friendly campus status. Onto the glitzier side of things, I was able to help Forth Valley College at the bottom there to get the recognition that they deserve for some of their work around catering and sustainable food options, with a Green Gown Award last year, and more wider recognition for West Lothian College at the College Development Network Awards sustainability category, also last year, in the top left photo. What we've also been able to do by having this additional capacity, and also the ability to share between institutions, is to bring really new things to them. Chris mentioned the SDG teaching, and yes, I'm very jealous that Bridgend are on the leaderboard, but over time I've managed to introduce the SDG teaching to the 3 institutions within the partnership. Start with West Lothian College in 2022, Forth Valley College, Forth Valley College taking part for the first, Borders College taking part for the first time last year, and Forth Valley College taking part for the first time this year, as the teach is ongoing during March. Really great to see higher pledges from each of these institutions this year. That competitive element there between the institutions is really quite helpful for encouraging departments and team leaders to push their staff to take part in the teaching. Over on the right, and in a also quite colourful, quite red diagram, is a snapshot of something new that we also developed in the form of a climate risk register. In Scotland, the tertiary education institute sector is fairly behind the rest of the public sector in terms of looking at climate risk and climate adaptation, and much of the guidance is non-sector specific. So as a way of driving this forward at Bridgend College, I put together a climate risk register laying out all of the appropriate risks we felt in each of the different areas of college delivery, to begin to identify work we're doing to mitigate that climate risk currently, what we need to do in the future, and of course to get an idea of what those threats are likely to be. And this is just a snapshot from the document, but of course developing that with one college, I was then able to roll it out with the other two, and now, funnily enough, Forth Valley College have taken this and are the furthest progressed in terms of adaptation of the institutions, as they've set up an adaptation working group, and we're putting together an action plan of how to really tackle that institution-wide. This actually brings me quite neatly on to that wider sector benefit that I mentioned, and my colleague Lara from EAUC took that risk register and has turned it into a guide with help from Adaptation Scotland, although it is at least a UK-wide resource, and could be used internationally. Although, of course, some of the reference documents might be different. She did that. She took the example from Bridgend College and made some templates for repeating the exercise. Really happy that it's had really good feedback from the sector. I'm conscious that I'm running out of time, so I'll wrap things up quickly. It's just a really good example here of sector intelligence, how I've been able to feed back to EAUC and the wider work carried out for the rest of the sector. But of course, being attached to EAUC, I get the latest news that I'm able to feed back to my institutions. There are changes to the partnership. So in January, unfortunately, West Lothian College had to drop out of the partnership. However, Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh have taken up that extra third of my time. So the partnership has continued in a slightly different format, and they are a slightly larger institution, of course, a university rather than a college. But I am already finding that there is quite a lot of crossover and quite a lot they can learn from each other. So exciting times ahead for me. I mentioned to my colleagues at EAUC that I was speaking at this event, so they have asked me to do a quick plug for the International Green Gown Awards, opening from April 28th. UK and Ireland Green Gown Awards open from the 3rd of April as well. So do apply if you have projects. I'm encouraging my institutions to apply where they have projects, and good luck to those that do apply. If you scan the QR code, it will take you to the website for both categories. I will finish up there. We've got info@eauc.org.uk if you have any questions, and I will stop sharing my screen and have a look at some of the questions that I have seen popping up. Thank you very much. So I'll start with a question from Chris, unless you're popping up, Chris, to ask this yourself, in which case you're very welcome to.
Yeah, just before we sort of move, yeah, I was quite interested in, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. It's a mine of information, isn't it? And I think that's what you've shown us, is that actually putting minds together, partnership and collaboration are the things that are going to bind us together. And even though there is competition, as you said, this underlying sort of current of competition between organizations, actually strength does lie in partnership and collaboration, and it helps organizations, I think, not feel like they're out on a limb on their own, that they're part of something bigger. But I was just wondering, thinking in terms of what we're doing as an organization here, what do you think are the greatest challenges for FE in this current climate? And is it around financial situation and financial planning, or is it something different?
I mean, that's a fairly leading question, Chris. I think you've got it right. I mean, it's something that example at the moment is Scottish Government have some documentation around a consultation on a draft mandatory guidance for the public sector around climate change. And so many conversations that I have with people within the colleges, it's like, what's your initial response? It's like, yeah, great, but we need the funding to back it up. And right now, that sort of funding for large-scale decarbonisation projects in Scotland is paused because it's oversubscribed. And when they put £200 million in for the entire public sector over is it 5 years? You can see how that suddenly doesn't go very far. It's not the only thing. I think even within the institutions that I work with, trying to get climate change taken into account at all levels of decision making isn't there yet. But I suppose that's a gradual process, and it has to be. Having a big pot of money behind it, of course, is always going to perk up principals' ears and attention, but that certainly isn't there yet.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for your time for joining us, Rory. We really appreciate that, and I'm sure that listeners online, or those people that are going to follow up on catch up, will get a lot from that, particularly in terms of some of the resources that are available. The climate risk register is quite an interesting one for us to have a look at. So learning points for me again, and once again, thank you so much for your time.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, I think we're ready to move on to our next speaker, and I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Jennifer Rudd, who I've known for a number of years, actually. Jennifer was actually my tutor on a circular economy course that I did with Swansea University. Oh, how many years ago? A few years ago now. But it's something that I've been really passionate about, and I know that it's a strong area of Jennifer. And I'll hand over to you, Jennifer, so I don't steal your thunder. Lovely to see you.
Hello. Right, I'm hoping that now okay. So what happens when I do this? Okay, can you see a whole screen? Chris, some feedback if you can. I'm now lost an extra screen. Yes, we can see. Okay, right, brilliant. That's weird. I've got it as a whole thing on mine, and anyway, we will proceed. Sorry. It's been an afternoon of teaching and then straight to this. So Chris asked me to talk about circular economy, and I've taken some bits from a lecture that I normally give, and I was a little bit torn. It's not progressing.
Sorry, Jennifer, we can only see the presentation, like the PowerPoint screen, so you might need to just drop that off the share.
Yeah, see, let's try this again. Right, fix the tech. Okay, or rather the tech person's fixed the tech. Thanks, Scott. Sorry, so I was a little bit torn about which part of my lecture I took for you. I've got one bit where we kind of look through all of the different places that a mobile phone is created and where all the different bits go. But I thought, as we've got such a brilliant international audience and set of speakers, I would focus in on Wales and try and represent the country that is now my home. So at the moment, what we've got is we have something called a take, make, waste strategy that we're following. So we extract resources, we produce something, we distribute it, so we send it around the globe, we consume it, and then we chuck it away. and that's what we do. But that is not what we want to be seeing, and it's certainly not what the circular economy looks like. So the circular economy is basically a system of loops. So if we think about eating an apple, we could pull it off a tree in our back garden, we can eat the apple, we can put it in our compost bin in our back garden, and then that'll compost down, and we can take the composted apple and we can put it around the bottom of the tree, and that will help to fertilize and grow more apples. So that's a really basic biological circular economy. It gets much more complicated when we think about a technical circular economy. But let's think about a car. So we've got a finite amount of materials. Let's think about an electric car. So we're going to manufacture the parts. We're going to put those all together with a product manufacturer. We're then going to sell that electric car, and somebody's going to buy it. Now, the best thing that we can do is make sure that we're getting loads of use out of that electric car. So it's not sat on our driveway, not being used, but it's being used by people all of the time. So things like a cooperative model or a car leasing model or a car sharing model would be the best thing that we could do with that car. The next thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is maintaining and prolonging its life. So this would be things like your annual service, your MOT, making sure that your tires are in good condition, making sure that you're putting windscreen wiper fluid in it, and we've got the service provider involved in that. We then move on. So maybe you are finished with your electric car. I don't know, maybe you've got an offer for a more, one with a bigger battery that'll take you more miles. Your family situation or your work situation has changed, so you need something with higher mileage as an opportunity. And so then this goes back into a loop where it gets reused by other people. So it might go back to the product manufacturer to give it a bit of a tune-up, and then it might get sold again as a second-hand car. And then finally, we think about the last loop, and we think about refurbishing and remanufacturing it. And then finally, the last thing that we think about is recycling. And if we stick with our idea of an electric car, actually, if it's got to the end of its life, what can happen now is that you can remove the battery from it. You can use that as a house battery, maybe in combination with some solar panels or something. And then you can take your electric car, bring it back down for parts, and have those go through the chain again. So that's kind of the best example of the technical circular economy that I can think to give you in a short space of time. So I hope that's made sense. In Wales, the Welsh government is aiming to keep resources in use for as long as possible and to become zero waste by 2050 with net zero emissions. And I really like this bit, to make resource efficiency part of Welsh culture. So the way that they're going to do that is they're going to drive innovation in materials use, upscale prevention and reuse, build on the recycling record, enable community and business action, and align government levers. So try and make sure that it's possible to take on the circular economy at every kind of level of living in Wales. So from people in their own homes to make sure that they're able to recycle, but also to think about how do we educate people about the circular economy, get people to think about, using the circular economy rather than just a take, make, waste approach. So they've got 8 parts of this. So they've said they're going to support businesses to reduce their carbon footprint and become more resource efficient, provide tools to enable community action, phase out unnecessary single-use items, eradicate avoidable food waste. And then I think this is a really important one, which further education can certainly take on, which is to procure on a basis which prioritizes goods and products which are made from remanufactured, refurbished and recycled materials, or come from low carbon and sustainable materials like wood. So things like computers are something that we need in education. We can actually buy those from there's a company called Circular Computing, which has lots and lots of remanufactured laptops. You can also buy remanufactured Kindle Fires from Amazon, and I'll give you an example of phones as well at the end of the lecture. And so think about how can you procure beyond just, oh, well, that's our regular supplier, so we'll just get it from them, but ask the question, what is your supply chain like? What is the end of life plan for this item that we're buying? Have you got remanufactured options? Could we send this back to you for recycling at end of life? Wales is very proud of its high recycling record. Reduce the environmental impact of the waste collection from our homes and businesses, and they've now extended the recycling opportunities. They've mandated it that everyone in any kind of level of living in Wales, so churches, schools, everywhere, have even more complicated recycling systems, so that they're trying to make sure that everyone is recycling as much as possible. And then this last one I think is really powerful. We will take full responsibility for our waste. And on a day where there's news about how tyres that should have been going off for recycling have actually ended up being burnt in India, taking full responsibility for our waste is quite a big promise, I think. So they've got some key targets. So by this year, we should have seen 26% reduction in waste, 0 waste to landfill. Wow. 50% reduction in avoidable food waste and 70% recycling, to get us to our one planet resource use in 2050, where we've got 62% reduction in waste, 0 waste, net zero carbon, and one planet resource use. And so what could circular economy look like in practice? So this is a case study from Swansea Council. So Swansea is a city in South Wales. It's where I'm located. And the council moved people from traditional office space to what's called agile working, which means hot desking. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to change the office furniture and change the office style, make it a bit brighter, make it a bit more fun, make it more appealing for people to come in and work, and I guess make people feel happier that they'd had their desks taken away. And so previously they had 122 staff working from 150 desks, and then afterwards they had 368 employees working from 202 desks. So they said they've increased their desk utilisation rate. So if we take that back to the circular economy loops, that's the share loop that was the first one that we saw. They had 486 items of furniture that were reused or remanufactured. So they saved 7.8 tonnes of materials from landfill and 29.1 tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions. And then they were able, so the floor tiles that you can see here, they were using reused carpet tiles rather than buying new ones. And so that saved 2.4 tonnes of materials from landfill. And then the procurement processes that they used for this created 6 new full-time equivalent positions and 3 temporary roles, which is pretty cool. I said I'd share with you about phones. So I've now got one of these phones, full disclosure. So Fairphone is a company that works really hard to try and have a circular economy model. And so they use something called design for disassembly, which is abbreviated to D4D. And that means that phones can be made with modular components. So if I take the back off mine, so if I hold that up to the screen, what you can see is there's different bits of it. And rather like the old Nokias, I can take out the battery. So if the battery dies, I can just order a new battery and replace the battery instead of having to replace the whole phone. And then there's also separately a bit with a speaker on. So if the speaker dies, then I can just get a screwdriver again, order that part and replace that. And it's exactly the same for the cameras and for the screen. And so as somebody who constantly drops their phone on the floor, it's really annoying for me with most phones that you can't just replace the screen. You have to then replace the whole phone. And the joy of the Fairphone is it follows that circular economy model of just being able to replace the different parts that have broken. They've also got some really brave marketing because it includes the message, the most sustainable phone is the one in your pocket. Because with circular economy, we want things to last as long as possible. And so we don't want, we're not working on a model where people are constantly going out and buying new things. And then the other thing that they're doing is working to improve workers' rights. And then I thought the last example, again, thinking about education, thinking about things like school uniform, or, in sixth form, you might have leavers t-shirts and things like that. Where are those clothes coming from? So Rapa Nui is another company which has a circular economy model. So this means that at the end of their life, the t-shirts can be sent back to manufacturing for recycling. They're making sure that they're using organic cotton grown where monsoons help to irrigate the crops rather than having to bring water into areas now that are too dry. They're able to clean and recirculate wastewater from the dye house and then use the dye for road markings. And they're using renewable energy both in the factories in India and the Isle of Wight. And the important thing is the t-shirts are only printed when an order comes in. And so they're not building up large quantities of stock that they then might have to throw away if nobody buys it. And of course, the t-shirts are designed to be recycled. So basically, there are a lot of bad and wasteful manufacturing processes out there that we are all complicit in when we use procurement processes incorrectly. We can't continue to use the linear economy because we're rapidly running out of resources. We're killing the planet and we're piling up waste everywhere. So what we need to do is use the circular economy instead, which requires a closed loop system where materials are designed for disassembly and reuse. And while some organisations have started on this, we need many more to get involved. So how could you use that in your organisation? Thank you very much.
Hey, Jeff, can I just start by saying thank you so much. I know you're incredibly busy, like many people, so we really appreciate you taking the time out to do a presentation for this. And it's a real hot cookie, this one is, isn't it? The materials economy is such a significant force for us to deal with, I think, at the moment. But the opportunities, as you've already showed us, are there. A lot of it is around behaviour change, I think. And we're all guilty, this mass consumption where you have planned obsolescence for particular products that we're guilty of. But I also really strongly take your point on the procurement practices and how that's a great starting point for organisations to really look at the impact of the choices they're making when they're buying things, products or services. You'll know as a sort of a student of yours, an ex-student of yours, shall I say? I don't know. That we at Bridgend College, we've already made a commitment here to, as we move from our Bridgend campus into our new town centre campus in the coming year and a half. We're already planning that process of what is it we've got in our current campus that is reused. How can we reuse them? I know Scott, who's sitting in the background, is doing some fantastic stuff on our IT that you alluded to. But one of the things that we've decided to do as an organisation, and this was on the back of meeting yourself, Jennifer, and going through your programme, is a programme of teaching and training for all our staff. And that is now written in our strategy so that people understand what circular economy is and how they take that into curriculum so that we can start shaping the minds and the decisions of young people so we can get out of this rut that we're in with the materials economy. Before we go into our next speaker, I just want to say it's lovely to see you, and we deserve a catch up and a coffee at some time. But for now, thank you ever so much for taking time out. I know it's a rush going from teaching and then joining this, but I appreciate what you've done, and I'm sure people on the call and those people who might catch up the recording of the video also appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Francisco Urquiza is a gentleman from Chile. He's the Vice Director for Teaching at the Institute of Sustainable Development at the, and I apologize if I get this pronounced wrong, Universidad Católica de Chile. That's my attempt, and I hope it's somewhere we're close, but we're really happy for you to support this symposium, Francisco, so we'll pass over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. You got it right. Thank you. I'm also part of the Sustainable Campus Network, which is similar to AIUC back in the UK. So I was very interested in what you were presenting right there. So let me see if I can do this. One second. I guess you are seeing the presentation. I'm not sure. You are? Not yet. What about now? I'm switching between tabs. Let me see. Yeah, there it goes. Now it should be working. Yes, great. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm always interested to share views about this topic. It's not necessarily something I'm working all the time. I was invited to talk about SDG 12, like sustainable consumption and production, which is closely related to previous presentation, particularly circular economy, but also you will see it as it's related to what Steve was sharing with us in terms of experience and the relevance of self-knowledge. So what I want to share with you is my present concerns regard to our patterns of consumption. And to do this, I will go, it's a short presentation, so there's just 3 parts I want to engage with. The first one is very rapidly, just have a very broad view of how are we doing in terms of achievement of SDG 12 worldwide. I know there are many differences between countries, but these issues need to be solved at the global scale. So let's see how are we doing, which, as you might guess, not that well or not that good as we will expect it. And then some reflections of what might be the core drivers behind this, and not necessarily technical drivers. I'm an engineer as a base, so I click a lot with circular economy and stuff like that. But time has teach me that maybe the core drivers are not necessarily there, and most related to our psyche, our social relations, and some confusions we have in terms of how we satisfy our needs. And that's actually the last part of the presentation, a short reflection on understanding needs, or the confusion that we have understanding needs and satisfactors. So first of all, in terms of how are we doing, well, it's very interesting the way the goal is framed, this idea of ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. This the wording of this goal. I think there's 2 things that I came to mind when I read it. The first is the idea of ensuring something. It's a very ambitious goal. The other is the idea of patterns, production patterns. It's a very complex thing, It is talking about patterns because we know when we talk about consumption and production, we need to think about everything. We need to think about the drivers, the psychological drivers that make people buy stuff in the first place, but also how supply chains are organized, how international commerce is organized, how geopolitics is influencing this international commerce. So, of course, it's a very complex topic, and that complexity actually makes it very difficult to advance in a meaningful way when we have only a technical focus. So the ideas of a circular economy that are nothing new, actually. It's just how nature works. But as the work of the Cradle to Cradle of William McDonald and others came, are very clear and makes a lot of sense. But when we try to implement those things, we seem to be failing. It seems to be very difficult to do. And that has made me think that is not only about a topic of technical problems, it's also that is more philosophical, more in our human psyches. And we can see this in data. We've been talking about circular economy for a while. We have the 23 Sustainable Goals agenda for a while. And in the same period, when we see a very key indicators, which is material footprint per capita, it's the amount of stuff that we're consuming to maintain our lifestyle is increasing. And this is per capita. If we consider our population is rising, this number is even higher. So if you want to look at the number, I think this is one of the most eloquent way to see that we are failing in terms of reducing the impact of our consumption. Also, we're seeing bad news in terms of subsidies on fossil fuels are coming back, and it's related to geopolitics. But that means that it's not only a material footprint that is increasing, also that this whole economy, the production, the industrialized world is relying again in fossil fuels, and we know all the impacts it has in terms of climate change and other aspects. So not necessarily good news. Of course, there are good news also in terms mostly of commitments. There are countries are implementing policies. You see everybody's talking about these topics now. Companies also are disclosing their sustainability reports, and they're trying to be more transparent about the supply chains. So we have more data and more commitment. But in terms of results, we are not seeing the results we want. And there's other consumption patterns that should be worrying us. For example, we have that the antidepressant drug consumption in the world is rising everywhere, and it's related to GDP. So it's a sort of paradox, if you may say, because at the same time that we are increasing the amount of stuff we buy, the amount of consumption we have, that supposedly will allow us to access to things that increase our well-being, we're seeing that people are more depressed, apparently, or at least they're consuming more of these chemicals that help us deal with depression. So this paradox, I think, calls for the attention to see what is behind the issue. It's not only a matter of how much we are contaminating, how much embedded materials or toxics are in the things we buy, is why we buy stuff in the first place. And that's one of the questions we tend to elude because it's not popular when we think about the economy, because we need the economy to be vibrant and moving and growing. And we need to question some things that are deeply going against those assumptions. So what are some of the drivers? This is not, I think it's not new, but I think we need to remember these dilemmas. Well, we live in this materialist economy and society where the social norm is related to the things we have, and we are comparing it with other people because of the things we have, the experiences we have. We share that in social media, and in a way, it's shaping the aspiration of people of what they need to do or how they spend their money and so on. We have this aspirational luxury and trend cycles. We know all about fast fashion. So there's something happening that is accelerating also this pattern of consumption, because they're very close related to the way we try to find identity or try to define ourselves. And it seems that the wanting feeling is stronger than the having feeling. We want something, we buy it, and the second we have it, we just want something else. So something is happening in our heads, And I talk about myself because we are all part of this thing, these phenomena. But I can see it increasingly in young people, and that worries me a lot. And these issues, this is an emergent property of this economic system we have. We have a system that is seeking profit, that is moved by these private interests, which are very useful to solve very complex problems. We need the innovation of the private sector, but maybe we have just give too much space to the private sector to even enter the way we define what satisfies people and what is well-being in the first place. I like this quote of Nate Higgins, which I think is summarized in a very provocative way the times we're living. He says, today we are turning billions of barrels of Asian sunlight into microliters of neurotransmitters, which is to say we are just burning fossil fuels that we know comes from the sunlight of all living things. and we are burning that sunlight in an instant in terms of theoretical terms, just to transform into neurotransmitters, which is, I think, it's very important to connect with the problem that is related to our human psyches. Neurotransmitters, the thing is translated to dopamine or cortisol. You in a way where we are creating all these stimulus for people to be hooked on buying more stuff and more stuff. And the other problem that we have is that this way of this consumerist economy and society now has pushed the accelerator to the end, because we have the rise of hyper-targeted advertising and platform economies. And we all know what I'm talking about. We all have cell phones. We all might have some social media. We are part of this new data economy where we are sharing for free our data of our life experiences. And that data is being used to being very precise in targeting publicity and in a way manipulating our interests, manipulating our minds, our collective minds, into buy more stuff that we don't need. So we enter in these dopamine loops where we are hooked in our devices because for one part of the economy, which are in a way managing the social media and all these platforms, the currency they have, what they sell is our attention time. So it's in their best interest to keep us hooked to these devices so they can sell the data that we create and also the space to sell us stuff, and we are doing this voluntarily, and we are not questioning how problematic can it be for us as individuals, as a society. So we have reduced the time to think, the time to actually, in this very fast economy that we are participating right now, it's very difficult to ask people to be aware of where these products are coming from, because the decisions are being taken very fast. We are buying stuff all the time, and also the time of delivery has shortened in a dramatic way. We went from, in the 1990s, from 1 to 2 weeks delivery times, and now we are talking about 3.7 days of delivery times from some products that we are buying. So is it really time for people to actually question where these products come from? I don't think so. So that's very difficult because a lot of the circular economy premises are related to consumer consciousness. And the thing is not that we are not capable of being worried or making better decisions, but the thing is, can we actually take the time to make this decision properly, or can we be fooled because the companies might try to appear and using bad tactics as greenwashing as sustainable, but in reality they are not really that sustainable. So as Shoshana Zuboff says, we're now living in this sort of surveillance capitalism where the human experience has been captured, as a free raw material, and it's huge to feed these algorithms of artificial intelligence that are becoming incredibly smart to manipulate our psyches to buy more stuff that we don't need. So I think part of the problems of this, or maybe where we can find part of the solution, is first realizing that we are part of this new economy, that our attention is being captured and we are being manipulated. Take back the control of our time, of our attention, of our life. But also we need to question some deep confusions that we have related to needs. And one confusion that I often found, not only with my students, but also colleagues and people around me, is that we have a profound confusion between needs and satisfiers. And I think this confusion is key, because when you think or say or communicate you need something, it's a very strong word. It's a very strong idea. Needing something it seems to be not negotiable. But in true sense, we don't need actually a cell phone. We don't need a truck. We need to move from one place to another, and we might have many different ways to achieve that. And actually, we are moving for a reason. We are moving because we want to be with someone. We want to engage in something. We need to buy food or whatever, but we don't need this huge truck to do that. So track is part of the satisfiers and are completely negotiable. We need to be critical about which satisfiers are in a tune with the necessities of the world. We need to be critical about it in terms of human survival and to the health of the biosphere. One thing in terms of satisfier, we also can classify them as primary and secondary. Primary satisfiers are things that directly satisfy our needs. It could be just engage with the people around you, spending time in nature, connect with your neighbors, with your family. That's things you really feel satisfy your need directly. But then you have secondary satisfiers that are not bad, inherently bad, but there are things that supposedly allow you to access these primary satisfiers. So our artifacts, our institutions, are things that supposedly facilitate the possibility to satisfy your needs. But the thing is that in this secondary satisfier is where the business is, is where the possibilities for businesses, which is good. But the thing is getting exacerbated. So buying products, services, and stuff in a way is being where all the focus we're losing attention from the primary satisfiers. Primary satisfiers are also related to self-knowledge, to our capacity to mature as humans, to realize what is really important in our lives, and that takes time. And we are distracted because of secondary satisfiers, which are product services that we are constantly telling us that we need those things, but in true sense, we don't need all those stuff. We need to be picky about them. And secondary satisfiers are probably good for business always, but not necessarily good for people all the time. And the other distinction that I think is interesting to have is the one that Manfred Magneff gave us in human scale development. Manfred Magneff is a Chilean ecological economist. He passed away a few years ago, and he made huge contributions in terms of discussing human needs. What he said is even more radical. He says, we don't have infinite needs. That is a confusion in our current society. What we actually have a fixed number of needs, which are the same from one culture to another culture, and even over time. What differs from culture to culture are the satisfiers we have. And he said explicitly, so needs are not negotiable, but satisfiers are, and we need to question the way cultures are creating satisfiers, which are related to institutions, products, services, in terms of if they actually are allowing to people and societies to satisfy their needs in a sustainable manner. And he even classifies satisfiers. He says that we have synergic satisfiers, which are satisfiers that can attend multiple needs. So, for example, participating in a community garden can be a synergetic satisfier because it can satisfy the need for participation, for subsistence, creation. And so those maybe activities and situations we engage with where we feel full, and then they're not necessarily mediated by secondary satisfiers. But the danger is in the other types of satisfier where we need to pay close attention. So we have some placebo satisfiers. So there's this stuff that it gives you the illusion of satisfying your needs, but I actually just a lie. It's just a momentary feeling of sensation that is not satisfying yourself. Actually, it will make you more hungry about satisfying that need. And this is all the place where drugs live, every type of drug. Even now, we can actually talk about addictions to social media. This dopamine loop, in a way, is acting as a placebo. We engage in this social media supposedly to connect with others, but many times it's distracting us for a minimal connection with other people. So how many people you are WhatsApping in a daily basis or maybe weekly, and because of that you don't feel the urge to actually meet with them face to face. Of course, it's useful if there's no possibility for you to see these people face to face, but maybe you need to reduce the amount of time you're spending just using social media and have more meaningful interaction with other people. So it's dangerous, and we need to be critical about those products and services. And there are others that are inhibiting satisfiers or violators, which are satisfiers that actually might overfocus the attention in one need, and it might block the possibility to satisfy other needs. So here, there are many of these that are related to the need for protection and with the emotion of fear. So when we feel fear, we usually engage in irrational behavior, and we might accept some solutions that might block the possibility to access to the satisfaction of other needs. And you can see this in communities where you have this fear of violence or crime, and communities or even houses are enclosure themselves to feel safer. But at the same time, they are distancing themselves from their neighbors, friends. So the possibility to actually participate and get affection or create a community identity are weakening. So we need to have a closer look about these needs that propose Master McNiff, and try to approach them in a more synergic way. So what can we do in considering these ideas? So, and what can we do to win a race for our attention, time, and energy allocation, and environmental degradation, which is a race that we are losing right now? So we need actually to speed up. And I think there are many strategies. All of those strategies are actually right now happening. It's not that we are not doing this stuff, but I think we need to do it more decisively. At the global and national scale, I think we need to promote synergetic satisfier policy. So trying to create policies that allow for this satisfier that can attend multiple needs at the same time, hopefully also promoting primary satisfiers, which are not so material and energy intensity. We don't need so much stuff and energy to actually feel well. We know that in our daily experience. So why we don't encourage that more? At the educational level, we need to strengthen philosophical and psychological awareness. So basically self-knowledge. And I think this connects well with what Steve was talking about. Self-knowledge in a way, in terms of knowing what our potentials as humans, but also our weaknesses. Where can we be manipulated by messages, media? Is something that we need to develop more in our children and young people, and even as an adult. We need to be more resilient to this stimuli and be more able to find in a more meaningful way, what is relevant for us, what is relevant for our community, and not just allow for other private agent to impose what should be your identity and this materialistic way of seeing accomplishment. At the social circle level, it's very simple, but it's not less important. We just need to devote more meaningful time to others. And I think we need to do that more. And we've seen that this is not what is happening actually with young people. And I think particularly related to social media. So we need to create context for social engagement to allow people to know each other better in a deeper way. And we can do this in the classroom also. And on the individual level, I think is where we have most agency, supposedly. So I will summarize that we need to wake up, slow down, be present, and become truly mature humans. In terms of wake up, it's just wake up in terms of acknowledging that we have this problem and we need to confront it. Slow down in terms that if we're driving at 200 kilometers per hour, there's no way we can actually see that thing that crossing the road. We will just go over it, and we are not able to see what's happening around us. We need to slow down to actually realize, is that actually the way we want to go? We're so engaged in that one direction that we don't even question the objective, and maybe we just need to take a more widening road in our lives, or maybe a U-turn and going back to something that we left behind. And we need to be present. And I love this moment of just paying attention to the river. We need to be present, just breathe some time and look around and realize that this feeling, this anxiety, these emotions that we are having, we need to acknowledge them and deal with them, and move away from just go automatically about our day and be more conscious about our decisions and trying to find what actually make us feel good as individual, as community. And become a truly mature human, I think is related to this idea that we need to take control of our lives, of our wantings, of our identity. And that is part of the process of maturing. And I think we're increasingly immature people. You know, I talk with some friends that are over 40 years old, and they're having the same conversations we used to have back in school. So I think we got stuck in an age. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I think is when we talk about sustainable consumption and production, we need to go deeper to the human psyche and our definition of needs. Thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Francisco, for such an enlightening and powerful and passionate presentation on what is, it feels to me like an extremely complex problem for us as a society to overcome. Particularly, I take up on your talk about the satisfaction of needs and our satisfaction and what satisfies us and what do we actually need. What are the psychological drivers around that? I definitely take your point on sustainable consumption and those production patterns and how much per capita we as Europeans or people worldwide are actually consuming, probably without a lot of thought. And I'm particularly interested in the parts you mentioned about the social media impact. That's something that I've not thought of before. I guess the challenge for us as organizations and as educators is to try and find a way to bring this to closer attention of our learners. So I've been furiously writing some notes as you were speaking. So I've taken an awful lot for me to go back and think about and to begin to take some action. So on behalf of everyone on the screen, thank you so much for your time, Francisco. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we're running a little over time, but that's okay. I'd like to introduce you to our next speaker, who is Lauren Saunders. And Lauren, I've known for quite a while now, is the Sustainable Food Partnership and Sustainable Food Coordinator for Bridgend Council here in Wales in the UK. So lovely to have you with us, Lauren. I know you've got lots to share with us, so I will hand over to you. Off we go.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I feel like we've been around the world and we're coming back to Bridgend to end, which is nice. So as Chris mentioned, I'm the Sustainable Food Coordinator based here in Bridgend. My role is actually based within Bridgend Council, so I'm not actually based within the college like many people have been today. So very luckily, Welsh Government funded this role across Wales over the last few years. I've been in post since about January 2024. So just over a year now, I've been the coordinator in Bridgend. So I'm a full-time sustainable food coordinator, and I'm about to get a part-time project officer on board with me as well, which is very exciting. So I'm talking about Goal 17 today, about the partnerships for sustainable development, and just wanted to highlight the point here, which says partnerships between governments, private sector and civil society. So I think this is something that as our partnership that we've done really well with creating our steering group and making sure that we've got that really good representation. So just wanted to give you basically an overview of our partnership and what we've done in the last year. So we're a network of people from a range of organisations coming together with a shared desire to make change, and we want to ensure sustainable and healthy food is accessible for everyone in Bridgend. And as I mentioned, our partnership focuses on collaborative and coordinated approach across the whole food system. So just wanted to give a little overview of our steering group. So I feel like we've done this really well in making sure that we've got that really good cross-sector approach. So we're including lots of different organisations, third sector, private sector in there. So we've got a food pantries, we've got a volunteer organisation, we've got different officers from within the council. Bridgend College, Chris is involved in our steering group. We've got the health board, a local dairy farm, as well as a housing association that's doing growing projects. So our mission is to create a sustainable and healthier Bridgend for all levels of society. And we want to engage communities and collaborate cross-sector to create a more equal food system. So in the UK, we have the Sustainable Food Places, which is a partnership programme, which is led by Soil Association, and here in Wales is coordinated by Food Sense Wales. So just wanted to highlight that really. We're a member of this organisation. We became membership in summer of 2024. So we'd only been in partnership for about 6 months and we got membership of this, this great programme. So with the Sustainable Food Places framework, it covers a systems approach, and these are the 6 areas that all of the work that we do in the partnership covers. So we look at taking a strategic and collaborative approach to good food, building a public awareness of good food, tackling food poverty and diet-related ill health, creating a vibrant sustainable food economy, transforming catering and procurement, and tackling the climate emergency through food. So everything that we've done in the partnership has been co-produced. As a coordinator, my role isn't just, I've got to coordinate the partnership. It hasn't been something that's all come from me. So having that co-production right from the beginning was really important, and working in collaboration right from the offset. So this is what the partnership has done in the first 12 months. Looked engagement and vision, food system assessment, food system consultation, and food strategy development. So I just want to highlight everything that we've done really, and really show that co-production, that collaboration, that partnership work that's really led us to where we are with our food strategy. So initially, identifying stakeholders, who's doing what in Bridgend, who are the key players in the food system in Bridgend, meeting the local council contacts. So, we've got the procurement officers, the catering officers, really key roles in this work. Forming the steering group, as I highlighted at the beginning, we've got a real cross-sector of our steering group, which I think is a really good, I'm really proud of that. And then creating a vision right from the beginning, from the whole steering group. Again, that vision couldn't come from me, it had to come from all of us, this partnership and this collaboration. So just going to show a little example here. This is what we did right at the beginning, just using Mentimeter. Just to get, everyone's viewpoint for our vision, creating that. These are what the 11 responses from the steering group members were. You can see, if you look back at our mission that I outlined at the beginning, how that then came together to become our vision and mission. And there's another example there as well. So from that, then we went on to the food system assessment. This work was probably done a little bit more by me as opposed to the partnership, with looking at the current policies around food in Wales. And then we did mapping work, which again was more collaborative with the partnership. We had an amazing consultant work with us on that to find out exactly what's going on with the food system in Bridgend. We mapped out all of the different producers, the wholesalers, who's growing what, how many cafes we've got, how many shops we've got, and we created this really great database of information. But with that as well, we did some really good stakeholder interviews and met with these individual players within the food system in Bridgend to find out where they're purchasing their food from, how are they disposing of their food, do they have food waste, where, what suppliers are they using, to get that really great in-depth knowledge of where the food system is currently. And then this is probably the main body of the work that we did throughout last year, is the food system consultations. This is everyone in the partnership coming together to express their views on food. So last April, we went to Bridgend College and we did an amazing stakeholder workshop. There was about 20, maybe 30 people actually crammed into a meeting room. I think probably a little bit too packed. And it was really great to see that great enthusiasm in the room. I think a lot of people are passionate about food, even if they're not passionate about sustainability. So it tends to be a topic that a lot of people have a lot of views on, because we all have to eat. We all have to eat, normally 3 times a day. So most of us have very strong views on food. So it was a really great day, and it really showed, where the energy was at currently, and we were really able to shape, the future of the partnership from that day. We also host monthly food network meetings, and this is with our community food groups. So we've got 66 community food projects in Bridgend who provide food access for those who are most food insecure in Bridgend. So, for example, things like food banks, community food pantries, community fridges, projects like that. So we meet once a month, and it gives an opportunity for these projects to share what's going on in real time on the front line. We're able to get that real in-depth information then Previously, food banks and community food projects were associated with people who are out of work, but we know now that more people who are working are accessing these projects, so we're able to find out these information of the people who are coming in, so we can sort of act more in real time. We also did some drop-in food workshops, which are really exciting, in the town centre, just standing there asking, come talk about food with me, which actually had a really good response. Wasn't sure how it's going to go down. Reminded me of being a student doing my charity fundraising, but we had some really good conversations around food, talking about what people want for their towns. And then after this, we did the public survey. So this allowed us to get some more sort of data and numbers around what people's views are on food, how many people can access food, how many people can access food that they like, how many people can access food that they want. So we got some really good information there to really use as a basis of our strategy of where people are at. So then after we did all of this, we came together to have a big food summit. So this was in one of the lovely parks we've got here in Bridgend, in Bringarrow. It's a lovely country park. And we had 70 people come along to that day. Again, really good representation from councillors to, we had a few students from a local school come as well. So we had different ages. We had teachers there, third sector, private sector, a really good mixture of people come together for our food summit. And this really was a day together as much as we could to get into that strategy. So it's a great way partnership work, really, because I got everyone to do my work for me. I just had to put it together at the end. So we had a really good example at the beginning of the day of a partnership in Wales that's been going longer than us. So yeah, that was a really good, inspiring start to the day, really. And then we did this wonderful visioning workshop about a postcard from the future. So you could write a postcard to you in 10 years' time to talk about Bridgend. And we've got some examples of those as well. You can see, it creates that vision for the day. And from that, then we had some more workshops which looked at the 6 key themes which I outlined at the beginning of the Sustainable Food Places framework, and put all this together to get the sort of key points from the day. So yes, after all that, it was a case of putting together all of the consultation, the food summit, all of the outcomes from the workshops to put together for our draft strategy. So you can see there are examples from the postcards, and we had an illustrator there on the day as well who've done the illustrations throughout this, were done based on the food summit. So you can see there, an example of the first postcard, healthy food access has been improved, local growers and farmers are organic, food is tasty, people are happy, food isn't going to waste, it's going to a food hub. So you've got these amazing ideas of what people want from their town in the future. So after the food summit then was very much about getting that strategy together. So the way that this was done was looked at the key themes from the day. Again, this was all, the themes that have come from everyone in that room, the community members, different organisations, and making sure everyone who was there, their voice is included in our strategy. So put this together in a logic model that came out with the strategy and then the action plan. So this is just an example there of the logic model that was used. So I wanted to go over the strategy just to show, all this partnership work, this collaboration, what we've come out with over the last 12 months, really. And just to give a bit of context about Bridgend and Wales. So the image on the left there shows the fruit and veg, you can see is highlighted, and the Welsh origin. So only 6% of the public sector food procurement in Wales is grown in Wales, which is a really shocking statistic, which is something we definitely want to change. And then just on a Bridgend scale, I know we're talking about sustainability today, but health and sustainability is everything, both included within my role, and I feel like the two come hand in hand anyway. So you can see there the lighter blue is the Bridgend statistics and the darker blue is Welsh average. So Bridgend is worse only slightly than the Welsh average for adults BMI and children BMI, which is, when you're from that area, it's really not a nice thing to see. So just to give you then a little overview of our strategy, just to show what we're going to be doing. It's really exciting. Really excited for things that are going to happen in Bridgend. So our first aim is we want everyone living in Bridgend to access healthy, nutritious food. So we've got some really exciting things that have started already from this. We've got some cooking workshops going on. Again, all of these points are things that came from conversations in food networks, conversations in workshops, in the survey. These are what people want. These are the gaps that we've identified from all of this work that we've done. It's not just a case of someone from the council saying, let's do cooking workshops. It's really been gathered over the last 12 months of what we need to do. Looking at the food redistribution hub, so this is an area that really came up in the community food network meeting, is the food they are accessing is currently from amazing surplus food redistributions, but they want to have more reliable supply chains as well. So looking at this for community food, and a wonderful orchard project, which we'll be doing with a local charity, because they've got these beautiful apples that went to waste last year when we've got community members that can't access food. So we really want to prevent that from happening this year. So good food movement is our next point of our strategy. So making sure the public are more aware of healthy and sustainable food. So we've got some amazing creative food and art workshops which are happening in spring, which include things like walks, talking about food walks and tales, which is really exciting. Talking about food in a different way, not demonizing food, not having this very overly educational side of it, but just talking about food and creating this really lovely space around food. And we've got a contract for comms and content online to really build up the movement so people know more about food in Bridgend. Where can they get good, healthy, sustainable food? So the third point is to transform catering and procurement. I feel like being based within the council is really lucky for this point. My role across Wales isn't always necessarily based within council. It could be based within a charity or housing association, different organisations. So being within the council gives us more opportunity to really improve catering and procurement. So this is a really exciting area. So we're involved in the Welsh Veg in School scheme, which sees organic Welsh grown veg in schools. So last year we had organic broccoli in our schools in Bridgend, which is really exciting. I did some visits into the schools and the children most of the children really loved it. Some people actually preferred the frozen, but it could just be what they're used to. But along with that, looking at also ensuring that the demand for healthy food is there. So being involved in schemes like Eat Them to Defeat Them, which is a campaign to get children to eat more vegetables, engaging more with schools as well around growing and cooking. And I think importantly, looking at how we get more smaller suppliers into our public procurement. So looking at workshops so that these organisations are able to apply for tenders, because it's a big thing to do to apply for tender contracts. So making sure we're providing more opportunities for information and help to do that. Food for the planet. So impacts of climate change is mitigated through supporting local sustainable food. We've got some amazing growers within Bridgend and just outside. So looking at growing workshops for communities, this is a way to improve the food that's currently in our community food provisions, which is a really exciting project that we're starting. Launching growers meetups, and again engaging with schools to ensure that schools have those growing skills. So we've got some growing calendars going out, and we're doing some school trips to our local farms. And then the last point then is sustainable food economy. So having a prosperous food economy in Bridgend with local food businesses supported to grow and develop. So we launched a business network last month. Again, amazing atmosphere, really good energy, people really wanting this. So it's a really good starting point. With this network, again, it's very much about that collaborative approach. So people in that room deciding what they want to do next. Do they want to have a collaborative project? Is that going to be, putting on a food trail or a market? Or is it going to be, as a county going for living wage accreditation? So really, allowing that network to become what they want it to be on a collaboration basis. yeah, again, I just wanted to highlight here about the community food network that I've mentioned. So this is run monthly with a volunteer organisation called Barvo. And I think this is really important. Quite often community groups aren't able to share their voice. And I think having this monthly meeting really makes sure that the work we're doing does really focus on that community level, that the food projects and the things that, you know, as a council officer, the things that we're doing, it really is serving our community, and it isn't a case of just doing something which looks good or because there's funding for it, but really going with what we're being, you know, told and heard from by the communities. So just to highlight some of the achievements that we've been able to do as a partnership, and I do feel like so much of this has happened because of the energy that we had in those first initial workshops that we run early last year, and from those organisations and individuals being able to really, you know, share their vision right at the beginning. I feel like it's had that really good momentum from that. So yeah, we did some in the school holiday provision. It's called Food and Fun, and we were able to have some Bridgend grown cucumbers and tomatoes going into schools over the holidays, which was really great. So really proud of that, and that came from the partnership. I'm trying to think what I haven't mentioned already. I think if I covered it all from earlier on. Yeah, I think that's all covered now. Okay. So going forward, we've got some regional work. So looking at how each community coordinator is able to engage with the health board. So Bridgend is within the Cwm Taf Morgannwg Health Board. So within that, there's 3 other local authority areas. So we're coming together to do more of a regional sort of work. And this work really aims to get that community voices heard at a regional scale. So the health board are going to do some appreciative inquiry training with us. So that's really exciting to make sure those community voices are being heard on that regional scale. And yeah, the most important thing is setting out all those actions that we've identified and we've set out within our strategy and action plan. So that's going to, you know, take a lot of work for us as a partnership to achieve. And then just to continue to expand our partnership. And we really want to engage with more organisations. I feel like so much has already been able to be achieved in the first sort of 14 months. So the more partners we have, the more people we have involved, you know, the better this work can become. So it's really exciting, I think, for us to be at this point already. And we just want to make sure the message is, you know, very much spread on a wider public scale. So if anyone in Bridgend is watching this on catch up or on live and wants to be involved, then we'd love to have you involved in our partnership. My details are on there, and I'm sure they can be shared at the end as well. So that's all from me. I tried to keep it within the time so we didn't go over.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Lauren. I mean, it's, you know, as you said right from the outset, food is the thing that connects everybody. What I was particularly struck by your presentation is the amount of partnership work and collaboration that goes on. And in fact, the whole basis of what you're doing and supporting here is that coming together of different people in different communities. And that's reflective of the other kind of challenges we have around, you know, biodiversity or climate change or our food and farming production systems. And in fact, sustainable food is so connected to so many of the sustainable development goals that it almost sits in the center, because it's food and drink is what keeps us alive. So the environment in which that food production system is operating, and we know food and farming is one of the biggest polluters on the planet at the moment. The work that you're doing with these partners is it's critical and fundamental to what we do. I know we're right up against the time, so well done on that, Lauren. It just remains for me to just say a massive thank you to all our guest speakers who have taken time out to come to the symposium today. I know a couple of them have had to rush off because they're teaching as well, or they've got other work to do. So we really appreciate that. The recording of this symposium will be sent out as a web link to people who have registered and perhaps weren't able to make this. And finally, I think just in the background, we've had Dr. Scott Morgan, who's been looking after us and making sure all the IT runs smoothly. So I just want to express our sincere thanks to Scott for setting this up for us. That's the end of this symposium. Hopefully that was enough to give you food for thought, and I wish you well. Hope the rest of your day goes well, and au revoir. Goodbye.